Hey, amazing fans, a huge welcome to my community. I'm beyond excited to share my content with you, and I'm honored that you're here to join me on this journey. Stay tuned for exclusive updates, behind-the-scenes peeks, and a whole lot of fun. Thanks for being part of my world. Please, like and share. Martial Peak Episode 2, a deep dive into the Donghua High Heaven Pavilion's first rule. Every High Heaven Pavilion disciple has the opportunity to challenge a disciple once per day, and every 5 days they have the opportunity to be challenged once per day. In a battle, the strength of both sides cannot be more than 3 levels apart. No one is allowed to avoid the battle, no one is allowed to cower, and no one is allowed to violate this rule. The winning side will be awarded a corresponding amount of contribution points based on the opponent's level, while the losing side will be deducted a corresponding amount of contribution points based on their own level. Contribution points, also known as sect contribution points. This was a special feature of High Heaven Pavilion. Simply put, contribution points were equivalent to money in High Heaven Pavilion. As long as one had enough contribution points, they could be exchanged for anything they wanted from the sect's logistics department. Pills, manuals, weapons, armors, anything related to cultivation, they could be exchanged for. Of course, they could also be exchanged for gold and silver, but generally speaking, sect contribution points were hard to come by, so most disciples were reluctant to exchange them for gold and silver. There were also many ways to obtain sect contribution points, such as turning in one's own treasures to the sect, or completing tasks given by the sect, etc. One of the most common and simplest ways to obtain sect contribution points was through challenges. Challenging a disciple whose strength was less than 3 levels lower than one's own would give them contribution points. That was why so many people had gathered around Yongkai so early in the morning. Everyone knew how to pinch a soft persimmon. Yongkai's name could be considered famous in High Heaven Pavilion, not only because he carried the status of a trial disciple, but also because he had never tasted a single victory since entering High Heaven Pavilion. Every time he was challenged, the result was always a loss. Those who paid attention naturally remembered the last time Yongkai had been challenged. Today was the 5th day since then, so according to the sect's rules, he could be challenged again. Who wouldn't be envious of the contribution points that could be obtained so easily? Although winning against Yongkai didn't give them much contribution points, a mosquito was still meat. What's more, the disciples who would challenge Yongkai weren't rich or noble, so naturally they wouldn't complain about a trivial amount of contribution points. In the middle of the field, Yongkai and Zhou Dingjun had already taken up their stances and said in unison, "Please advise." That being said, everyone knew that Yongkai was going to get a good beating today. As soon as he finished speaking, Yongkai took the initiative to attack. His thin and weak body exploded with amazing fighting strength. He took a step forward and punched Zhou Dingjun's chest. His attack was simple and direct. His fist was like a tiger that created wind, as if all his strength was poured into it. This fist technique was the long fist technique that every High Heaven Pavilion disciple practiced. This fist technique wasn't profound, it was only used to strengthen the body of the disciples, so the moves were naturally very simple. Zhou Dingjun didn't panic, and had a smile on his face. It was because his cultivation level was 2 levels higher than Yongkai's, so there was no suspense in this battle. When Yongkai's fist was about to hit him, he turned his body as if he was taking a stroll in the park. His tall and sturdy body seemed to be somewhat agile at this moment. His fist brushed past Zhou Dingjun's clothes and did not hurt him at all. Not waiting for Yongkai to retract his fist, Zhou Dingjun's elbow hit Yongkai's forearm. At the same time, he slightly raised his knee and hit Yongkai's abdomen. Yongkai let out a muffled groan as he endured the excruciating pain and hurriedly retreated, narrowly avoiding Zhou Dingjun's third attack. Zhou Dingjun was surprised. He didn't expect that his brother, who was only a tempered body 3rd stage, would be able to predict his next move. His plan to defeat him in one fell swoop was disrupted. But this small mistake didn't affect the overall situation. Zhou Dingjun's thoughts changed, and he followed like a shadow. He wanted to take advantage of Yongkai's respite to end this battle. But just as he moved, the retreating Yongkai suddenly pounced on him. The two figures quickly closed in. Zhou Dingjun saw the unyielding and high fighting spirit in Yongkai's eyes. Yongkai clenched his fist and threw another punch. Oh no! Zhou Dingjun's heart skipped a beat. He knew that he had fallen into his opponent's trap. Although his strength was higher than his brother's by 2 stages, his battle experience was not as good. But, So what if he fell into his trap? Zhou Dingjun's aura was as deep as the abyss. He no longer dodged and returned the favor with a punch. With 2 light bangs, Yang Kai was sent flying. Zhou Dingjun's body swayed, but he still stood there with a dignified expression. If this attack had been launched by an opponent of the same level, the one who would have been sent flying would definitely have been him. Others may not know the secret behind these 2 punches, but he could feel it clearly. This senior brother's fist was actually a bit faster than his own. In other words, he hit him first, and only then did he hit him. But his punch was not as strong as his own. Furthermore, he had a strong body. On the other hand, his opponent was as thin as firewood. His face was as pale as a vegetable. It was obvious that he was malnourished. His resistance was not on the same level, which led to this result. Brother Yi, thank you for letting me win. Zhou Dingjun did not feel good. Being hit first by an opponent who was 2 stages behind was not something to be proud of. Although he had won this battle, he still felt that it was not a good win. Whispers came from the side. This guy thinks he's won. Haha, could it be that he has never heard of Yang Kai's name and came to challenge him? This is really interesting. Zhou Dingjun raised his eyebrows. He really did not know Yang Kai very well. He had only heard about this brother from others. Today, when he passed by, he saw many people gathered around, so he joined in. He did not expect that his luck would be so good and he would be chosen as his opponent by Yang Kai. But, didn't this mean that he had won? He had sent this brother flying with 1 punch. He already had an overwhelming advantage. According to the rules of the sect, his opponent should have admitted defeat because there was no need to continue fighting. Again, while she was thinking, Kai Yang, who had been sent flying, had unexpectedly stood up. His eyes didn't show the slightest sign of discouragement, instead his fighting spirit had become even stronger. After being struck by that fist, his originally emaciated face had become slightly pale. Without waiting for Zhou Dingjun to answer, Yang Kai rushed over again. When he was less than 3 feet away from Zhou Dingjun, his body suddenly sprung up and his legs swept out like a whip towards Zhou Dingjun's lower body. Whip kick. It was also a basic skill that every High Heaven Pavilion disciple had practiced. But at this moment, when Yang Kai used it, many of the disciples who were much higher than him were able to understand it. It turned out that the whip kick could be used like this. Without waiting for the crowd to sigh, Yang Kai was sent flying again. The difference between the 2 realms and the difference in their physical attributes made it impossible for Kai Yang to compete with Zhou Dingjun. Zhou Dingjun's punch landed on Yang Kai's calf. When Yang Kai stood up again, his footsteps were slightly staggered. It was obvious that his bones had been injured. Again, Yang Kai clenched his teeth, his eyes burning with a raging fire. Pung! Yang Kai was sent flying. Again, pung! Yang Kai was sent flying again. Some people who couldn't bear to watch had already left, while others sighed. This Yang Kai's tenacity is really beyond words. Every time he challenges someone, he will definitely not give up until he's knocked out. When these words reached Zhou Dingjun's ears, he couldn't help but feel bitter. He didn't expect that he would challenge such a crazy opponent. Kai Yang was sent flying 7 or 8 times. His cheeks were swollen, and even his eye sockets were black. He staggered forward, looking like he would be blown away by the wind, but he was still as stubborn as a rock. Wherever he fell, he would pick himself up, shout, and continue to charge forward. After repeating this, Zhou Dingjun's face finally changed. Are you crazy? If you don't admit defeat, you'll die. Quote, please, like and share. The end of episode 2.